welcome to another edition of Trader Talk TV. Today we're in the office, amazing. Not doing it virtually, we're doing it in person on the whiteboard, the famous whiteboard here of Trader Talk TV. Today I've got Alex Deats from MiQ in the office. Alex, how are you?
Very good, thank you, Kieran. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And before we jump into our discussion, which today is about China and the opportunity for data-driven marketing in China, we're going to get Alex to just talk about a bit about MiQ and a bit about his role, because he's a Chinese expert within MiQ. So, Alex, what do you do down there?
Yeah, thanks, Kieran. So first and foremost, MiQ are a programmatic media partner. We work with agencies and marketers to deliver custom solutions across the programmatic space. And our approach in China really is no different. I've been working at MiQ for about 8 years now, and I lead our expansion into the Chinese market. We've been established there since 2018, delivering two core strategies. The first is outbound, which is partnering with Chinese marketers and agencies, enabling them to connect and expand their businesses overseas using our core global solution, operated by a team in Shanghai.
Mm-hmm.
And then the inverse of that, which is what we'll spend most of today's discussion talking about, is what we call China inbound, which is helping global brands reach consumers in China from anywhere in the world. And we do that with a Chinese tech stack and a bilingual Chinese team located across the globe.
Now, everybody might be under the illusion that programmatic is simply plug and play, but China is a different entity altogether. It's very much dislocated from the world's ecosystem, media ecosystem. There's many players, big players in that market that is endemic just for China, and it's a very, very different ecosystem. But the opportunity is huge. It's probably the marketing opportunity of a decade. Western brands are looking to access this market. You may have heard the likes of Jeff from the Trade Desk talking about it in his earnings calls, always talking about referring to China as a huge opportunity. But it's not simply just plug and play, here's my DSP. It's very much, as you say, a custom thing. So let's talk about the challenges of actually buying programmatically or in a data-driven way in that market. Let's just talk about them initially, because there's quite a few of them. Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there is certainly a huge opportunity in China. You think about the number of people connected to the internet, you think about the growing middle class, but there are challenges and complexities that come with reaching the Chinese audience in China. I think the first one to start with would be technology selection. So let's up here. And when you think about technology selection, it's about ensuring that you have the coverage and the depth of capabilities within China. So technology that we're used to, that has formed the foundation of what we use when advertising and marketing internationally, isn't necessarily being built or designed with China in mind, or there are rules and regulations that are preventing those businesses from being fully interoperable with the Chinese market. So it's really important to partner with local businesses that provide access to local inventory, data verification and measurement. Yeah,
and we all have to remember that there's no Google, no Facebook, no Amazon in China, so we're talking about a completely different ecosystem altogether.
Absolutely. And I think the second consideration and things to be mindful of in China is that China is a mobile first market. So there are 1 billion people connected to the internet in China. 3/4 of total internet consumption time is spent on mobile devices, and 80% of digital ad spend is more or less exclusively mobile. And so digital relative to total ad spend in China is the highest of any mature market in the world, and mobile is really synonymous with digital. So mobile has to be absolutely front and center of any strategy that you have when executing in China. And then the third consideration is one that you cannot shy away from, unfortunately, which is ad fraud. And there are studies that suggest that China is home to more than 83% of the world's digital ad fraud, and there are more local studies that signpost that up to 32% of digital advertising is across invalid traffic. And so in a digital market that's worth $100 billion per year, that quickly stacks up. And so it's really important to have a forward-facing strategy to mitigate the extent of ad fraud in that market.
So let's talk about the custom piece then, like, because obviously these are huge considerations, right? First and foremost, you have the likes of Baidu and Tencent and what's the other one? Alibaba, and they have massive ecosystems, and effectively they are their own ecosystem. So like the Facebook, Google, Amazon ecosystems. So that first needs to be sort of attacked in terms of how do you buy across this. So a couple of things like how do you target and how do you measure. Second thing is the mobile, right? So your format's going to be different, the way you measure is going to be different, the way you target is going to be different, and then finally it's the ad fraud. Like that is such a huge issue. Like you don't want to be spending like millions and millions of dollars of spend, and it's just being basically shoved into some random like bot farm in Shenzhen. So talk about your custom approach to this, because this is what MiQ do very well. They kind of look at problems like this and they build around the existing tech stacks. Because obviously the likes of the trade desk who try to come in and plug in and buy across, and it's been relatively successful, but not like a massive sort of hit. So you're working with the ecosystem. That's what you guys do well. So talk about your stack and your approach there in China.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, Kieran. As in, the way we've approached China is consistent with how we've approached all of our other markets that we've expanded to in the last 10 years. So we take global programmatic principles and apply that to local Chinese technology. And we're very fortunate over the last few years to have made partnerships with lots of vendors within the space, so that we're fully interoperable across Baidu, Ali, Tencent, and lots more beyond that, from an inventory perspective as well as from a data perspective. But the first starting point is always going to be your DSP partners.
Yeah.
And so we've spent a long time evaluating DSP partners in China, and we work with a handful, and these guys fundamentally provide us the gateway and the programmatic pipes to connect with Chinese consumers. So they provide us with inventory, and when thinking about inventory, we are now connected to over 40 exchanges. We see more than 10 billion daily programmatic bid requests. We are connected to the BATs and more within China, which is absolutely paramount given the coverage that those guys have within the China ecosystem. We are multi-format and multi-channel, and so when you think about connected TV, for instance, there are the most connected TV devices in China relative to any market in the world. And then actually native is the most common programmatic ad format in China.
So how many formats do we talk about in native? Because when you say native, it could be like, there could be BAT, but then we got likes of TikTok's own solution in China. And there's like a bunch of like mid-size e-commerce platforms that would probably be as big as any other e-commerce platform in the world, apart from Amazon. So do you have to think about formats always in terms of these platforms? They're always changing, and that's a big issue, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, creative format specifications, dimensions govern a lot of how you integrate and how interoperable you are with the various publishers and environments within China. So, there are 100 different iterations of native ad formats, for instance, and being able to have a stock native creative that can be adjusted and amended and is sort of malleable in order to meet all the requirements. But if you don't meet the creative specifications or the creative dimensions, for instance, then that may well exclude you from large inventory sources. This
is interesting as well, because like your success in the Western markets is very much built around a custom approach. Like, so you were one of the first companies to use Nexus, and kind of you were driving a lot of innovation on that and building custom stuff. So these DSPs, I mean, are you applying that same sort of learnings from the Western experience to that? Like, so like bringing your own sort of like targeting piece and trading piece, because obviously you work with likes of IPNU, who Grace is the CEO, great woman, but they are that connection in, but you're the ones sort of driving a lot of that trading piece. Yeah. So is that trading piece, is it different in China than other areas as well? Just give us an idea of how complex that can be.
Yeah, I mean, our philosophy is very much the same. So, IPNU are a really valuable partner of ours, And they've been great for us to innovate together and build products and solutions together. They've been really sort of amenable in taking that same approach that we had maybe 10 years ago with that Nexus, and taking those same principles and applying it within China. But these guys, as well as other DSPs we work with, they provide us that gateway with the inventory. They also provide a ton of targeting, optimization, and reporting functionality. But consistent with what you said, Kieran, there is that we know that's all well and good, and that provides us the sort of that gateway and that connection point. But consistent with what we did with Nexus or Xander all those years ago, it's about how we can build around it, how we can build on top of it, how we can stitch together and connect other partners within the space to inform better media activation and targeting within that DSP.
And it goes back to this as well, right? You could plug in and work with IPNU, but all the learnings afterwards, the connections to these different platforms is not always straightforward. Sometimes you have to kind of work with the platforms directly as well, and building that optimization and that attribution piece is really important in that instance.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the first thing to think about really is, if you're targeting a market with 1 billion people connected online, unless you as an advertiser, as a brand, you have infinite investment, it's about how you can take data and apply it in a way that can be more informed to target your exact audience. And so we have partnerships with many DMPs and audience providers in China, and we have integrated those DMPs in a way that informs better activation in our DSPs. So we have the ability to onboard first-party data, and in China, the sort of the currency of CRM data generally is cell phone numbers or mobile phone numbers, and that's the sort of the link to device IDs and to make that first-party data come alive within DMPs, and we use that for targeting, for lookalike modeling to expand the reach of that first-party data, and then also for a data-driven way to select third-party audiences. And third-party audiences are actually really exciting in China, and I think often there is a misconception that because China is different, that actually China is subpar or suboptimal, or not quite as advanced as other markets, where actually I think in many spaces they're innovating much quicker than there are in international global markets, and the application of third-party data in China is really different. And so,
well, when you say third-party data, what specifically are we talking about? We're talking about offline data. We talking about? I mean, I assume that the Chinese are going through a similar process around privacy and all the rest of it at the minute. Like, you can see the crackdown on some of the companies in the country. Does this change because of that as well, or talk a little bit about that third party piece?
Yeah, so in China, across our DMP partners, we see approximately 5 billion monthly active unique devices. They are sourcing data with SDKs and location-based signals coming from mobile apps, and that is across all of the sort of hero apps in China, all of the largest apps that are most commonly used in the space.
Yeah.
And then moreover, the data is transparent. So when we work with clients in China, we're able to onboard their first-party data. On their absence of first-party data, we're able to curate audiences and provide transparency in terms of which data is contributing to the makeup of that audience, apply Boolean logic, determine the audience sizes, and then see which apps are actually over-indexing and contributing to the taxonomy and the DNA of that audience.
Yeah.
So providing a ton more transparency in the application of third-party data. To be very clear where all of the data is coming from when we use it.
Well, talk about your measurement piece, because that's quite interesting. It's not a typical Western sort of solution. When you work with brands, how do you work with building that measurement piece? Because that's going to be part of the puzzle as well, a huge part of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the next thing in our stack is ad verification.
Yeah.
But since you mentioned measurement, I will jump to that. And so, measurement in China is really different. Consumers' behaviour is different. The way in which people purchase products online is very different. The way in which they engage with brands is really different. And so a lot of programmatic in China is based upon the sort of delivering, a high quantity of outcomes or procuring media at really cost-efficient prices.
Yeah.
And so, there are about 5 different outcomes that we drive for clients. And it depends on the nature in which they are looking to drive their campaign activity. So, the most common way in which brands are looking to connect in China is to drive activity and sort of digital footfall to their websites, right? But most of programmatic is working back to CPCs and CTRs and effective CPMs, and we work with analytics partners within China to work and optimize towards more effective outcomes that are a better indicator of quality. So things such as bounce rate, session duration, and depth of visitations on the page. And we are connecting those data signals back into our DSPs so that our traders can make optimizations based on things such as session duration and bounce rates. But then in addition to just driving programmatic traffic through to your website, brands often create H5 pages, which are sort of light mobile friendly pages, which are used primarily for sort of form submissions or lead generation or brochure downloads, which can actually mitigate interaction with websites, which can often have latency challenges if you're not hosting within mainland China. And then also we work with driving traffic through to WeChat mini programs. WeChat obviously being the largest and most used app in the world, we're interoperable with that. More recently, we've been attributing programmatic success to e-commerce platforms, so working with clients to drive programmatic activity through to their storefronts on Alibaba Properties, JD, or Pinduoduo, and then also looking at sort of proprietary ways that measure sort of brand uplift as well.
So old school metrics, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And another important component of measurement is ad verification.
Yes.
And this touches upon the sort of ad fraud challenges within the market.
Right. How do you manage to kind of work your way around that mess of fraud?
Yeah, so again, consistent with sort of text selection.
Yeah.
Working with sort of global ad verification providers. We've decided to instead work with local providers, and we work with a leading independent ad verification partner within China. And these guys provide us the ability to measure all impressions delivered in China, irrespective of the platform or indeed the format, for 45 metrics related to ad verification. So from the outset, any impression delivered, you get to see independently all of the ad verification statistics related to that. So what's general or sophisticated and valid traffic. And then in addition, we have implemented pre-bid ad fraud mitigation into our DSPs so that we can predictively, before we bid, remove anything that we think might be invalid traffic. And then MiQ have actually gone one step further, and we discount any impression or click that has independently been verified as invalid, and we discount that from any activity from our clients. So very quickly you've gone from a world where there's almost 32% of online traffic in China is fraudulent to a world where you measure everything, you can reduce that level down to sort of 2 to 5%. And then with MiQ we discount that, so there will be no investment from our clients when activating in China. That will be delivered to non-human users. And then what's great, Kieran, is actually the partners that we work with are several years into their Media Rating Council accreditation, and they work very heavily with the China Media Assessment Council. And so the same principles that we use and adopt for ad verification outside of China are those that are being adopted within China. So there can be sort of trust and confidence that the same ways in which we're mitigating ad fraud globally is also the case within China. Yeah,
and I guess as a feedback loop to your trading team, I guess you're going to have people stationed in China as well in the trading piece. Because that's one of the kind of the major USPs you guys have, is that being able to use all this technology is great, but it's the people behind it as well who are able to kind of pull the levers and make it work.
Yeah, we have traders located all over the world. So, most global marketers are actually making their decisions for China outside of China. And, we're providing optionality in market to have traders, account management and bilingual teams located where global marketers are making their decisions for China, bringing activation closer to where those decisions are being made. But you're right, we also have personnel on the ground in China that are keeping us informed on the local news, regulations and trends.
Yeah.
And around this sort of local tech stack, we have developed a what we call a tech wrapper.
Interesting.
Which internally we know as a lab or trading lab. And what that does is it takes aggregated data sets from our Chinese technology stack and combines them with data that we use for our global campaigns from DV360, from Trade Desk, from Xander, so on and so forth. So we have sort of a holistic and central repository of information to be making trading decisions on. So when we activate global campaigns with our clients that are multi-market, we can do so inclusive of China in the same manner that we do when operating outside of China. So that is data that's coming in aggregated form from our Chinese stack. That is the ability to holistically manage performance, as well as pacing and optimization, and also the ability to have central reporting, just like you would in any other market, inclusive of China. And that's in the form of reporting dashboards as well as insights. And that sits around all of this. And our traders located in the UK, in the US, in Canada, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, running Chinese campaigns for our clients, are able to use Trading Lab as a sort of the foundation to manage campaigns inside of China as well as outside of China. So we have a real central approach to enabling clients to run global activity inclusive of China.
And clients have seen this and think, wow, this is making my life a bit easier. I want access to the Chinese market, but I wasn't sure about the last time, because you've heard stories about clients going into China on their own and it's been a bloody disaster. So has this been able to make them easier to kind of onboard campaigns, run campaigns from their own countries and not have to worry about all the headaches of sort of talking to the various DSPs and doing all the kind of groundwork you guys have done? But is that onboarding process now a lot easier than it was before?
Yeah, I think our mission is really simple, and is to make programmatic in China as easy as possible. So we've undertaken a lot of due diligence and building out this technology stack in order to remove those complexities without reducing the extent of depth of capabilities in the market. And so we work with clients more often than not to run global campaigns inclusive of China. China is a huge market and part of their global growth strategies. Yeah. And so, with this technology stack and with our team that's wrapped around it, we're able to, drive success in China as well as we do across other geographies.
And it's also the future-facing stuff as well, because in China you've got lots of live streaming. That's quite interesting. So, those formats change all the time, and this is the difference between the China situation and Western markets like the US and UK and Europe. They're very much standard in the way that they approach things. Whereas the Chinese are kind of evolving on a different sort of route, because they use mobile first. Live stream is huge, and you've got those live e-commerce streaming and stuff. So talk about that a little bit, because that's quite interesting. I mean, brands have to be aware of this; they have to follow the eyeball. So you guys are sort of evolving for that all the time. So just talk a little bit about that. How do you make that work with those evolving technologies?
Yeah, I think from a personal experience and MiQ experience. Working in the Chinese market over the last 3 years has been not only a breath of fresh air and been really exciting and fascinating to work on a unique ecosystem, but actually a lot of things that we do in China has actually gone into informing a large part of our global strategy. And there's things in China around the extent of 5G coverage and what that means in the future. You mentioned live streaming. That is absolutely huge in China, with e-commerce sales from live streaming in China actually being larger than all e-commerce sales than just 3 countries on their own. And so I think programmatic will continue to advance. I think programmatic will continue to be interoperable with the largest platforms in China, and then things to watch out for are 5G coverage, live streaming, key opinion leaders and KOLs in China is a really big advertising medium. But really, I think programmatic is set to continue, and it's more than doubled in size over the last few years, and I think we can expect it to continue that trajectory into the future. Brilliant
stuff, Alex. That was a fascinating run through on the Chinese opportunity and what MediaIQ are building around. I think, as Alex said, this is a huge opportunity, and it's fascinating to see the bits and pieces all coming together. And then again, it's brilliant because it's very different from the Western markets and the way you think about it. So, thanks for that, Alex. Thanks for that run through in the custom stack. So, appreciate your time here today.
Well, thanks for having me.
And that was Trader Talk TV, and we'll see you next time.